Welcome to episode 60 of Shane Talks 99 2000 edition. It's the 99 Hangover episode, is what I'm calling it. We've done 59 episodes of the movies released in 1999, and I wanted to do one more episode that includes all the stuff that came out in 2000 that I really feel like is just kind of left over from 99. It still holds on to that 99 magic that I've been talking about because I'm going to be honest. I think 2000 is one of the absolute worst years of film ever. So, looking up online, I came up with about 206 films that were released in theaters based on just my rough going through things. Found another website that listed like 371 films were released in 2000, but that appears to include a lot of direct-to-video stuff. The IMDb only lists the top 200 grossing films for the year 2000. So, I mean, there's got to be more than that. Like I said, my rough number was like 206. Out of those 206-ish movies that I could find that were released in 2000, I found 18 of them that I actually really like and want to talk about. So, like, less than 10%. Like, we're looking at like 9% of the movies that came out in 2000 are movies that I actually think are worth talking about, which is bonkers because, like, that's the polar opposite of 1999. I literally just spent an entire year broken up into two sections, but a total of a year of my life making the Shane Talks 99 podcast, rewatching the majority of the movies from 1999 because of how good I think they are. Now, were there some duds in there? Sure. Were there some bad weeks in there that I was very blunt about? They were bad weeks in 1999? Sure. But a total of all of those weekends that I thought were bad or bad movies that came out, maybe there was 15 of them that I actually like didn't like and didn't think were worth like being 1999 movies. Again, 2000 is the exact opposite of that. So like I feel like cinema peaked in 1999. Like 1999 offered us so much great and amazing content that Hollywood has just gone downhill ever since then. And 2000 was just terrible. Like 2000 was a really bad year of film. However, as I said, there are 18 movies with different levels of greatness to them, and I will talk about my feelings on all 18 of those here coming up. I will try and be as fast as possible, but everybody knows how I am when I talk. So, um, let's talk about the bad. Let's talk about some of not let's talk about. Let's go over and list some of the really bad things that we were forced to deal with in the year 2000. In the thriller category, let's talk about Eye of the Beholder, Reindeer Games. Like, I love Ben Affleck. I love Ben Affleck. And this movie is so bad that I actually kind of like it. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I think if it was anybody but Ben Affleck, I might not. But Reindeer Games is really bad, but like, is it bad to an enjoyable point now? But it's still a bad movie. And then there was The Ninth Gate, and then the movie What Lies Beneath, which was like this terrible attempt at making like a Hitchcockian style like film in 2000. And man, I'm really sad that it was written by Clark Gregg because I really like Clark Gregg. Man, it's tough to say. I really like Clark Gregg a lot, and I have a lot of respect for him. And once I learned that he wrote it, man, like I really felt bad about that. And like even more disappointing is I've always known that Robert Zemeckis directed that piece of garbage. So yeah, What Lies Beneath is terrible. Then we got Hollow Man. I had to look at Kevin Bacon's penis again. I had just seen it in Wild Things not too long ago. Why Paul Verhoeven felt the need to show it to me again and then will let me watch it turn invisible. And then there's a whole creepy subplot of his character in that movie, like absolute garbage. The Spell, what a waste of a great cast for just a kind of cool looking movie that just had a terrible plot that was so dumb. Urban Legends: The Final Cut. Why did that get a sequel? Why did that get such a crappy sequel? Lost Souls, The Blair Witch Project got a sequel. Book of Shadows, absolutely nowhere near as great as the movie that came out in 1999. Dracula 2000 came out this year. In the sci-fi category, we had Supernova, like absolute garbage science fiction film that included this stupid, bizarre light speed, slow motion, zero gravity sex scenes. Like, I don't, it was absolutely terrible. And then, oh, Mission to Mars and Red Planet in the same year? Woo! Garbage. Oh, Battlefield Earth. Vomit, please, as Scientology spills out into Hollywood. Arnold Schwarzenegger gave us The Sixth Day. Why? You just made End of Days in 1999, and then you give us The Sixth Day? Oh, action movies. Let's talk about how terrible Gladiator is. I know I'm the only person on the planet who doesn't like Gladiator. I get it, but apparently the sequel's even worse than the original, so I'm glad I never wasted my time with that. Gladiator, not a good movie. I know I'm in the minority for that one. Ooh, another sequel, Mission Impossible 2. Like, why we gave John Woo, an insanely great action director, the ability to take a plot or idea about people that are supposed to be covert and undercover and never get caught, and there are big booming explosions everywhere. Well, that is essentially the moment where they derailed the entire Mission Impossible franchise into what it is now. Shanghai Noon, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. How did Kenneth Lonergan get stuck writing such a terrible film? Obviously it had something to do with a paycheck because in 2000 he also wrote one of my top two absolute favorite films in 2000, and we'll get to that later, but obviously the dude's got talent. How did he write something so bad as The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle? Ooh, we also got Highlander Endgame in 2000. Wow, a 90-minute movie that if you removed all of the slow motion from it, you'd have a 30-minute piece of trash instead of a 90-minute piece of trash. We got the movie Bait. We got Charlie's Angels. We got Vertical Limit. Like it just okay. There's more. There's more bad 2000 stuff to talk about. Let's go to the comedy genre. Me, myself, and Irene. The Farrelly brothers have never been able to recapture Dumb and Dumber or There's Something About Mary. Never been able to come close to those two movies again. And this was their first failed attempt at trying. Nutty Professor 2. Yay, another sequel that's complete garbage. Nurse Betty, Dr. T and the Women, The Ladies Man. And I do know some friends that like The Ladies Man, but I think they kind of like it ironically because it is not a good movie. And I like SNL stuff. I don't care for The Ladies Man at all. Bamboozled. No, not Bamboozled. Bedazzled. Bedazzled. There we go. With Brendan Fraser, who in 1999 you made the absolutely amazing film The Mummy that is so much fun to watch, and then followed it up with Bedazzled. Terrible. Little Vampire. Jonathan Lipnicki was just in Stuart Little, and then he followed it up with this. Little Vampire, Little Nicky, another SNL film, an Adam Sandler film that is complete trash and garbage. Oh, brother, where art thou? Now, I will never understand this. I know so many people that are absolutely obsessed and love this movie. I love The Odyssey. I like what it's based on. I think this movie is complete trash and garbage. Now, the music. Absolutely, the music is good and fun and enjoyable, and I have nothing against the music in the movie. I have everything against how terrible the plot of that movie is and how boring everything is that happens in that movie. All right, cool. So I've shit on 2000 enough. Like that's just the tip of the iceberg of the crap that we got that year. Just the crap that I felt like I needed to address how bad 2000 was by giving you those examples. Like I said, there's a huge, massive sea of blah in the year 2000. There's a lot of movies that are just fine. They're okay. I would watch them if I had to. If I was with somebody that wanted to watch one of them, I wouldn't complain about it like any of those movies that I just listed. But as far as stuff that I love about 2000, stuff that I feel like is a leftover from 1999, it still captures that same magic of what I just, rewatched over the last year doing the other podcast, or well, doing this podcast, but the other episodes. Like, there's 18 movies that I now want to talk about. And first up is Boiler Room. And I'm starting the drama category here. I kind of categorize these by genres. So let's start with dramas. The dramas that I like. Boiler Room. I'm sure you've seen Wolf of Wall Street because everybody on the planet loves that piece of shit movie that I absolutely hate. I loathe that movie. I think it's complete garbage. I think it's a terrible iteration of Jordan Belfort's character because Jordan Belfort was already shown in a 2000 film called Boiler Room. And to be more correct, like Boiler Room is more about the people that like work for Jordan Belfort. It's not about his stupid lifestyle that I don't care about in The Wolf of Wall Street. And it's literally just people idolizing rich people doing stupidly rich things. That's just absolutely annoying because they're all terrible people. All right, I digress. I don't want to go into a Wolf of Wall Street rant. Anyway, Boiler Room. My boy Ben Affleck plays the character that's modeled after Jordan Belfort. Like, obviously, at that point, they didn't want to pay him for like his rights or anything like that. So they just kind of made a movie that was based on a book that was written about what Jordan Belfort did. So Ben Affleck is only in two scenes in this film, and he kills both of them, especially with his motivational speech. The film also has Giovanni Ribisi, who had a great 2000, as he was also in Gone in 60 Seconds that we're going to talk about. But like his subplot of like trying to impress Nia Long and like their, relationship and how it develops, really, really great, subplot, side plot, however you want to look at it, to what Boiler Room really is, and just showing how money can change people and make people obsessed. Another drama we got to talk about, High Fidelity. High Fidelity is the movie that got me obsessed with Nick Hornby. Based on his novel, this movie would result in me getting the book and reading the book and instantly becoming obsessed with everything that Nick Hornby had to offer. He'd already written Fever Pitch, so I went and checked that out. Should have gotten into football slash soccer a lot earlier in my life after reading that book, but it took me a few years to get there. But in the mid 2000s, like after this film, got me obsessed with reading all of his books as they were coming out. About a Boy, A Long Way Down, Juliet Naked. Like as his 2000s novels were coming out, he was one of those authors that I just gravitated towards every release that he had, and I just wanted to read it and see what he had to offer to me next. And High Fidelity is a great adaptation of the book. I read the book after the movie, so I don't think I would ever have any issues with it. The book is far superior, obviously, but this is a great movie. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the music. I enjoy, breaking the fourth wall. I think the movie does a lot of things really well. And obviously, it's about relationships, which is, I'm a sucker for shit like that. So, let's go a completely opposite direction in this drama category with Requiem for a Dream. Requiem for a Dream is a lot. Like a lot. And it's really difficult to actually discuss the film and discuss why I enjoy it. Because like it's a movie I shouldn't enjoy. Like a terrible like, it's a great movie showing you a lot of terrible things. There's some scenes in Requiem for a Dream that are literally very hard for me to watch, just me personally. Um, but I can't deny the experience of watching Requiem for a Dream and just watching what happens to these characters and how all their lives are affected by different types of substance abuse, essentially. Um, Moving on from that, we have Unbreakable. And Unbreakable is literally one of the best comic book movies that has ever been made. Like literally phenomenal. In typical M. Night Shyamalan fashion, and the way he tells his stories, like we don't realize what we're watching and what we're getting involved with until that twist at the end. And while it's not as huge of a twist as The Sixth Sense, it's not something that matters about how it changes everything else in the film. I mean, it kind of does a little bit, but not to the same extent as The Sixth Sense. Like this was such a great follow up to The Sixth Sense in 1999. Like Shyamalan just really hit it off back to back years, like two really great films that I love. The rest of his career has been kind of a roller coaster about what I liked and didn't like, but here, 99, 2000, he nailed it. Well, finally, we just got through Christmas season. The Family Man was released in 2000 and is one of the best Christmas movies I've ever seen. There's so much heart and there's so much power to this story about a womanizer who on Christmas Eve is suddenly given a glimpse of what his life would be like if he had never walked away from his college sweetheart. So, like parallel timeline stories, I eat that shit up. So, he wakes up on Christmas morning and he is now married to her. He has kids with her, and it's like this whole fish out of water. Like I'm not living the life that I know how to live, and like how do I navigate that? And like how does he accept and settle down to the situation that he has been presented with this, glimpse of another life that he could have had? Then seeing how everything plays out once he wakes up from his glimpse and is back in reality and is back who he was before, and how this, I think it's like a week that he spends in the alternate timeline, like how it affects him. And it's very like it's literally like a modern version of It's a Wonderful Life. Like those are the vibes that I get from the movie, just kind of like in reverse. Instead of like how is everyone else's life bad without me in it, like how would my life have been better with her in it? So very, very amazing. Like I can't even. I've probably watched it like 10 times in the last month. Like it's literally one of those Christmas movies that I just put on, even if I'm doing something else, just because when I have a moment to sit down, I will enjoy whatever scene in it that I'm watching. Let's go to my favorite genre now. This is partially why 1999 is so important to me. It's partially why I am who I am today because of the teenage rom com just films that came out at this point. Like from the time that I turned, 16 until, I was 21, whatever, in there, like there was a large run of these kind of movies that really shaped and made me who I am. For better or for worse, like it's created who and what I want out of love and relationships and things like that. And the first one that we got this year was called Down to You. Freddie Prinze Jr., Julia Stiles, and honestly, like it's kind of like a mediocre story. Like it's not the greatest story, but like I enjoy the aspect of two people who just can't get their shit together to make their relationship work. Like they try to make their relationship work, but there's jealousy issues, there's infidelity issues, there's arguing, there's how do two people get through all of these things and try to still make it work? I really enjoy that part of it. It's got some really awkward subplots that go on throughout the movie. I won't deny that, but like it still has that 99 feel and that magic about just being in a relationship and what you do to make it work. And plus, it's got an amazing cast. Like literally everybody in the cast turned out to have at least a small run in the 90s or 2000s as like major stars in Hollywood. Next up is Here on Earth. And Here on Earth is it's one of those movies that has a my first time watching Here on Earth is the night of the infamous Creed fiasco. And if you've listened to the main podcast, I've talked about it before. Um, but despite the Creed fiasco, I am very happy that I watched the film this night. I'm very happy that I watched it with who I watched it with. And it is one of those movies that has carried on with me all of these years later. I have an extremely special place in my heart for this movie. I love everything about the movie. I enjoyed the movie going experience when I watched it. Most importantly, I love Josh Hartnett in this movie. It does have a great cast of like Bruce Greenwood and Chris Klein and Michael Rooker, like really amazing cast. But like Josh Hartnett for me, like this dude was so like what I wanted to be in the late 90s, like after The Faculty and then like this movie. Like Josh Hartnett was like my dude that I idolized at this point. So like him in this movie, there's just so much around his character, the way he acts, the way he talks, the way he presents himself that like I really related to and dug his character in this film. And I like the movie overall. I guess one that I watch from time to time. I have, like I said, great memories with the movie. Really enjoy it. I think it's really good. Yeah. So Here on Earth, great film for multiple reasons. Love and Basketball. Now, this is a film that I cannot recommend enough to people as far as specifically sports movies, like in that subcategory genre. It's near the absolute top of the list for me. This film follows Quincy and Monica from the time that they meet as kids, share a love and a passion for basketball. It goes through their high school years where their friendship is built on this love for basketball. They both become basketball stars, pushing each other. It's about two friends that push each other and then hit that point where they realize that there is probably some romance here between us. They take that friendship to the next level romantically, and then it follows them in their college years. And then it follows them when shit just doesn't work out in their college years. There's attitudes, there's egos, there's things that go on between the two of them that destroy their relationship. The film follows them as they go their separate ways, and eventually, years later down the road, after living their lives to an extent, coming back together for various reasons, and just kind of rediscovering that their spark and what they had like was still there the whole time. And so, like I said, like everything about this movie is perfectly executed. It's got a couple of like really good like musical sequences in it, like musical montages that I love the songs. I think they play out really well with what's going on screen. Um, yeah, Love and Basketball is just absolutely an amazing story. And next up, the summer of 2000 gave us Coyote Ugly. And yes, Coyote Ugly is exactly what anyone who knew 20-year-old Shane would know I would love about a film. There were beautiful women, they were drinking alcohol, they were partying to great music. And it's honestly a really good love story about two people that just butt heads a lot and then can't hold back the fact that they are obviously attracted to each other and have chemistry with each other, but they're just like so much alike that it takes them a while to get to that point. So the subplots in this film are great. The stuff with John Candy is great. The cast is absolutely top notch. And like I'm sorry, not every, there are a number of bit characters in this movie that would like literally go on to have major, careers in Hollywood. So there's a couple of, I mean, I would call them cameos now, but they weren't cameos at the time. Um, the Tao of Steve is probably one that most people who are listening to this have not heard of from the year 2000. But the Tao of Steve, I mean, unless Troy is listening. Troy, if you're listening, I absolutely know that you know what the Tao of Steve is. The Tao of Steve was a movie I did not see in 2000. It was years later, probably like 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere around that point where it was recommended to me. My friend Jay, I went over to his place. Him and Jimmy and I sat down and watched the movie together. Jimmy was a huge fan of this movie. Um, but they showed it to me for the first time, and it is an absolutely great film about a womanizer who has this method that he tries to teach his friends about how to seduce women and get women that are far, more attractive than you should. Like he's a 30 something, like overweight, heavy set guy who's a, elementary school teacher or something like that. Like does not live a fancy, huge lifestyle, but he has this method of how he just gets women to be attracted to him. He uses them and then he dumps them and moves on to another woman. So he has this whole shtick that he does for these women, and he ends up running across somebody from his past. And he attempts to use it on her to try to get with her, and she's not falling for his bullshit. And so while the challenge is there for him, like they start developing this actual relationship, and he realizes that maybe what I've been doing all these years, isn't the right thing to do. And then, of course, like a typical rom com, they got to butt heads, they got to go their separate ways, and they both got to figure it out for themselves. But The Tao of Steve is absolutely amazing. I think it's a really fun film, and actually talking about it now makes me want to go rewatch it because it's been a couple of years. So I should give that Donnell Logue film another shot. I mean, not another shot. Like I know it's a great movie. I should just give my time to watch it again. Lastly, in this category is Bring It On. And yeah, I mean, it was a great summer between Coyote Ugly and then Bring It On. Another rom-com teenage drama set in a world of competitive cheerleading, which I still don't really give a shit about, but it's a subplot for this movie, so it is what it is. It's played out funny. The cast is amazing. A lot of the jokes in this film play really well for me. The music, it has another great soundtrack. As we've talked about before, late 90s, early 2000s, soundtracks were killer. There's a lot of music in the movie that's just absolutely amazing. And plus, Kristen, whatever, and Jesse, whatever, I'm drawing blanks on last names right now. They have some great chemistry between them. Like, it's very fun and enjoyable to watch. Let's hit the action drama category. In this genre, we have Frequency, which is like a time travel movie, but not really time travel. Jim Caviezel finds his father's ham radio, and due to some funky lights that are going on in the sky, like the Aurora Borealis type thing, but I don't know if you can see that in New York City, so I don't know. He's able to talk to his father 30 years earlier. And like the night before his dad passes away, he's able to like give him a little bit of advice and say, "Hey, Dad, maybe don't do this when you're in this fire." And what happens then saves his father's life. But then using the butterfly effect in this storyline, it kind of ripples out of control and creates other bigger problems for the family because now instead of losing his father in the fire, his mother ends up getting murdered. So then it becomes him and his father working together to solve his mother's murder by this like night stalker. I don't know if they call him the night stalker, whatever. He's a night stalker type character going out and like killing women in night. His mother becomes one of the victims because of what happened with his father. Because the night that she got killed, she was actually at the hospital because that like it all butterfly effects. And then like the thing I appreciate, so Frequency, they kind of make up their own rules for this because again, like it's time travel, but not really time travel. Like it's alternate timeline. Not, I mean, it's not even alternate timelines. It's just like two timelines running parallel and things working back and forth between them. But like they don't ever stick to like the time is linear or the time is relative technique. Like it kind of just makes its own rules. Whatever decision you make in the past, it ripples out into the future, where then the future character knows that he's outside of what he shouldn't be outside of. But again, like they set up these rules and they stick to them, and I think that's what makes the movie feel magic and it's good. And you just got to look past that little bit of time travel shenanigans that like doesn't fit into how time travel is really broken down. It is what it is. Gone in 60 Seconds. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about Giovanni Ribisi. One of the best of 2000, absolutely top notch. My love and obsession for Angelina Jolie hit its all-time high with this movie. Like her hair, her clothes, her tattoos, like her personality and her attitude in this film are just like, oh man, like this is like the epitome of like awesome cinema movie chick. I mean, there was also some cool cars in the movie. Can't argue that. There was some really good driving sequences and some fun stuff that goes on. Lots of comedy and humor that's really good in this movie. But yeah, Angelina Jolie's character like really just set this apart from being some standard heist car movie. And I'm very happy for that. We also got X-Men in the summer of 2000. This was our first ever like super legit Marvel mutant movie. And yes, I know Blade came out in 98 and like Blade's amazing. Nothing against Blade, but like this was the X-Men. Like this was a great cast based on a comic book that had some like decent misdirection that goes on in the second act. When like you think you know what's going on, and then you learn now, like the bad guy's not really doing what you think the bad guy's doing. Like it was a decent script, not as good as the X2 script, obviously, but they had some more money to put into the X2 script. So like this film in the summer of 2000 started the superhuman, superhero, mutant craze that we still live in today. And Marvel is what Marvel is now. As far as horror films go, there's Scream 3 in this year. And yes, I get it. Scream 3 is probably the weakest installment in the entire Scream franchise. The plot was ruined by the Columbine massacre. That made Dimension decide to like cut out all of the gore from the movie. They added a bunch of comedy to the script. They got a bunch of rewrites to go on in the movie. The killers, there was originally two killers like every other Scream movie. They decided to change who the two killers were at one point. Then they decided to cut it down to one killer. And because of all of those things and the things that had already been filmed when some of these decisions were made, yes, there's some plot holes in this movie, some things that don't really make sense about it. But it still makes my good list because I was just in such a place where I was obsessed with the Scream franchise. I got a Scream film, the year after 1999 when I was on this high. I mean, it was February, so it was really close to 1999. But like I was still on this high from all the stuff that happened in 99 and working on the first, like I had just written the first script that Jason and I would eventually turn into Consternate. So I was like deep into horror slasher movies and like my love and obsession for that genre. And so while I can admit it's not the greatest film and it's the worst in the entire Scream franchise, I still hold a very special place for this movie in my heart. It means a lot to me personally. And that's why Scream 3 is on my good list of 19, or I'm sorry, of 2000. So Final Destination. Holy cow. Now, here is like a horror franchise creating film that came out of nowhere, and it just did like creepy horror stuff to teenagers so perfectly and spawned an entire franchise that I will admit gets kind of stale from time to time. There's, only so many ways death can kill people until I get bored. Not that any of the movies are bad, some are just better than the others. And I like the fifth one a lot, which is weird. That's not often that the fifth movie in a franchise is one that I really enjoy. But like the mythology that was created in this film was like something new, like seeing how death works and then watching the like Rune Goldberg devices that death is able to create to kill people. Like lots of dramatic tension, lots of tense scenes, and like my best memory about this movie will forever be Dave Mayer's reaction to the bus sequence. Because I had already seen the movie. I went to the employee screening of it a couple of days before it came out, but on opening weekend, all three of the Mayer brothers were going to watch the movie together, so I decided to go with them, having already seen the movie. Jason might have also. I can't remember if Jason had already seen it, but watching Dave and Mike's reaction to the bus sequence and specifically how loud Dave laughed at the bus sequence was just it is something that sticks in my head and will for the rest of my life. Now we've hit my top two. Everything else was just me kind of going in chronological order of stuff that was released this year. But my top two films of 2000, in the number two spot is a film called You Can Count on Me. You remember when I mentioned Kenneth Lonergan? Jeez, I can't even say the guy's last name. Kenneth Lonergan earlier. This is why I should be talking about him in the year 2000. You Can Count on Me is an absolutely amazing family drama. It tells a story about a brother and a sister who are both just dealing with their own shit in their lives, their own demons, their own stuff that's going on, why they feel the way that they do, and they are suddenly back into each other's lives. When he comes back into town, he ends up staying with his sister while he's in town. Kieran Culkin plays her son in the movie, and just how he looks up to Mark Ruffalo's character. And like Mark Ruffalo is this guy that's really just kind of been a piece of shit his whole life. He's kind of let his family down. Hasn't been the greatest guy, but when he comes back, he literally like has this heart of gold, but he still also has this like demon on his shoulder that causes him to do things and react to things and handle things really not in the best way, in very aggressive ways, in some very violent ways at some points in the movie. Like, so his character, despite wanting to do good and want, like, there are some great scenes between him and Kieran Culkin where like he's teaching him how to like swing a hammer and like hammer a nail in, and like he's just being this really great mentor character for the kid, and then the kid has to watch him do some really bad stuff. And like it's just such a great, like, peel back the onion, get the emotions out there. Like, Laura Linney plays the sister, and she is dealing with her own stuff and her own relationship issues, and not being faithful and having an affair with a married guy, and like all of this stuff that, like, you know you you judge her in the beginning, and then as we learn more about her, you're like, I mean, not that she's justified at what she's doing, but like, you better understand why her character makes the decisions that she does. And it's just, their dynamic is so great together, and the way the film ends between them, like, because there's character growth, but it's not like the characters change who they are. So they both do have character growth throughout the course of the film, but still at the end, their characters are very much in the same place that they were at the beginning of the movie towards each other, but have kind of made better choice, like better themselves for themselves. And it's just, like I said, it is my second favorite film of this year. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend You Can Count on Me. It is a drama, it is emotional, and it is very well done. And Kenneth Lonergan did an amazing job writing and directing this film. And my number one film of this year, the number one film is Almost Famous. If you know me at all, that's not a surprise in any way. It is Cameron Crowe, and it is prime Cameron Crowe. Like, Cameron Crowe has done a lot of movies that I love throughout his entire career. Lots of stuff that I really, really enjoy and really, really relate to. But Almost Famous is the definitive Cameron Crowe movie for him, for me. Like, I've talked numerous times about how I enjoy, plots that involve a random group of people coming together and forming a family. And that's the exact adventure that we go on with William Miller in this movie. The other groupies that he becomes involved with, the members of the band Stillwater, like, he's not quite cool enough to be in the band, but the band still accepts him and brings him around on things. So he's still trying to get, their love and affection. But at the same time, there's all these groupie girls that are, showering him with love and affection throughout the course of the movie, and like just welcoming him into their group of, their merry band of groupie family people, and whatever you want, however you want to look at it. Like, it's a great journey to go on with William Miller, and like hanging out with all these people that he idolizes, and then like the film just kind of romanticizes that free love, that spirit of drugs and alcohol in that time period, and like it just makes it look so cool and so much fun to be involved with. And Almost Famous has some of my favorite lines, quotes from movies ever. Specifically in this one is, the great art, or I'm sorry, all great art is about conflict and pain and guilt and longing and love disguised as sex and sex disguised as love. And the only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone else when you're uncool. And then, of course, there's I am a golden god. And we just talked a lot about Philip Seymour Hoffman having two really good movies that came out on Christmas Day. This was a great Philip Seymour Hoffman movie in 2000. He really was on a high at this point, like doing movies in cinema and stuff like that. Almost Famous is my absolute top number one film from the year 2000. It makes 2000 worth being being a year in cinema. Everything about this film is perfect. So there we go. That is my list of the 18 films that I really like from the year 2000, what I am calling the 1999 Hangover. And again, just wanted to do another episode because I like talking about all these movies from this time period in my life. So thank you for indulging me, going on this ride with me, and listening to me ramble on about 18 more movies that I love from that time period. One more episode to go. I'm not done yet. I've got one more episode. You got like 3 months to wait for it, though. On March 26th, I will be releasing a episode that is going to be talking about the 2000 Oscars, the 72nd Academy Awards, which gave out the awards for the films released in 1999. So I'm gonna go over the major categories. I'm not gonna do them all. I'll do the major categories, like the 8 to 10 major categories, everything that was nominated, if I felt like it should have been nominated, and then what won compared to what I wanted to win at that time. So, and maybe I'll reevaluate whether the thing I wanted to win then is what I still think deserves to win now. I can look at stuff like that too. So, one final episode in Chain Talks 99 will be coming on March 26th of 2025. So 25 years later, yeah. March 26th of 2025.